Hey friends, it's Adam Hebener, CEO of Modern Mortgage. Today's Tuesday, it's the 24th of March, and this is your Modern Minute. Guys, I'm still hoping for that day when there's just a single headline, and that single headline means one thing, and I can help us kind of dig into what that one thing means for the world and for our local economy. But we are not there yet. It feels like every time we get into this process, there's just another fire hose I have to turn on you. And so I apologize for that. As we go into it again, I just want to remind you, my role here is not so much to report. If I'm serving you well, if I'm serving our community, what I'm trying to do is equip you to interpret. I want you to understand what's happening, not just know, but actually understand. The difference between knowing something is true and being able to approximate that is understanding. When we understand what is true, we can do what is wise. And that's my goal. My goal is to help you understand what is true so that you can do what is wise, not so that you have some more facts. So let me talk a little bit about what's going on today, because it's going to be interesting to watch how media coverage deals with it. Today, we had a fantastic, by any account, fantastic day on the stock markets. The Dow was up 11% as of this print at its height. And boy, what a spectacular day. That's the biggest recovery day or the biggest up day since I think 1933, since about the middle of the Great Depression. And that's remarkable, and it's good news, and I'm so glad to see it. Now, here's the danger of something like that happening. It automatically provokes the question, are we done with this now? And that's a pretty responsible, reasonable question to be asking, because I think everybody wants to be done with this. We want to be done with quarantines. We want to be done with economic slowdowns. We want to be done with sickness. We want to be done with uncertainty and fear and anxiety and all these things that come together. And so it's really interesting and really understandable to watch people react to this the way they are and hope, hey, we had a good day on the Dow. That means everything's going to be okay. Here's the problem. That doesn't mean everything's going to be okay. And in fact, if anything, it's a reinforcement of the idea that we are in a pretty difficult time, and that pretty difficult time has really not yet come to its height. You say, well, Adam, how can that be true if we saw a good day on the stock market? And you might even tell me again, as I stated before, this is the best day we've seen since 1933. To which I would respond, remember what condition we were in 1933? 1933 was about 4 years after the great crash of 1929, and we were smack dab in the middle of the Great Depression. The kind of move up that we saw today, this won't be intuitive, but it is true. The kind of move up we saw today is actually indicative of a bear market. We see these kinds of things, these bucks back in the other direction. It's actually called a head fake often, or goes by other terms as well. What it is kind of just an overwhelming last spurt of liquidity shooting into the market, people feeling like, hey, it's time to buy. They want to earn back some of what they lost. There's a little bit of a fear fatigue, and people just will kind of emotionally react and try to push the Dow up, and folks jump on board because they want it to be true. And the reality is it is something that we see in pretty tough times, and for that reason, I have to tell you, it actually confirms, not denies, that we're in a pretty rough spot right now. Now, you have to recognize this about the markets, and this is where I want to give you these tools of interpretation. Number one, never dismiss what the market tells you. Never paste it over in a simple narrative and go, Never use a one-word phrase just to dismiss what's happening. You're seeing that happen a lot. People will simply describe what's happening in the stock markets as panic. It's panic selling. Well, panic selling indicates that people are being foolish, that they're running for the doors, that they're being irrational. And the reality is the market, when it's reflecting the activities of that large a group of people, is not being irrational. What the market is instead doing is it's giving us information. And the information it's giving us at the moment is coming to us in the form of a question. And that question is this: is every asset on earth overpriced? That's really the question that the market's currently asking. And it's asking it on the equities markets. It's asking it even more primarily on the bond markets. And there we can see more of the kind of sentiment of what people believe is coming in the future. The stocks tell us a little bit about what's happening right now, today, maybe the next couple of days. But bonds, when you understand them, tend to tell you more about people's expectation of what's going to be coming over the mid and long term. What does the next 2 years look like? What does the next 10 years look like? That's what the bond market's telling us. And when we look at all those things in the aggregate, what we see is a question. And that question is, are all these assets overpriced? Now, the good news is this. We're still in a moment in history where that question can be answered and it may even be able to be answered in a way that is positive. And you have to understand this. This week is a fork in this road. And you might remember this from my presentation last Friday. I told you this week, really the 10 days from last Friday, will be a fork in the road kind of time. And that's because that question is going to be answered by the stimulus package. Now, if you're a consumer, an agent, a financial professional, if you're a business owner or one of the many different kinds of people we have in our audience, then the way you answer that question is with two questions of your own. You simply say this, you're asking this of the stimulus package. Do I get to stay in my home? And do I get to stay in my job? If I get to stay in my home and I get to stay in my job, then I'm going to feel pretty good about things. We're going to have a rough time and we're going to work through this. That answer is a pretty crucial answer. And the fact is, at the moment, nobody knows what the answer is going to be. Now, the markets are asking in the broader question, are these assets correctly priced? And so far, their inclination, although there's not a final conclusion yet, their inclination is to tell us, we think everything on planet Earth is overpriced. There are lots of mechanisms for that, and we're going to be doing future webinars to help you understand why I make that statement. But that's really the question that the markets are asking. And if the stimulus answers that for you and me, for the regular average Joe consumer, if stimulus answers our two questions, do I get to keep my job? Do I get to stay in my house? Then we will in turn answer all those questions for the market. And what we'll tell the market is no, assets are not overpriced. And we'll actually probably find a bottom here. I would think it would be just a little below where we're at. And we'll probably start to grind back in the right direction. And you're looking at probably a recession of pretty typical economic structure. Although it started fast, we will be able to get out of it. And you're probably looking at, two rough financial quarters. You're done with this by maybe early third quarter in terms of its financial implications. And then you'll see us start to dig out of this. And probably by 18 months or so, we'll be done with this process. On the other hand, if the stimulus package does not sufficiently answer those questions, if they don't make Americans feel pretty good about having to stay in their home and having the opportunity to stay in their job, then this is going to get a lot bigger. And I don't mean a little bit bigger. I mean, this is going to get a lot bigger. And so I want you to be watching as the stimulus package comes out, how it affects you. Now be careful, because there's head fakes in the market and there's head fakes in politics as well. So you might see things like universal basic income included. And this is a debate that's raging both in economics, actually, for about the last 20 years, and on the street as well, made popular by folks like Andrew Yang, who ran for president. Joe Rogan has been talking about this in the most popular podcast on planet Earth. So universal basic universal basic income is one of these things that people are thinking about and talking about right now. Ask yourself, though, does UBI answer the question, do I get to stay in my home and do I get to stay in my job? The reality is, if the UBI replaces my job, I probably don't feel very secure. The idea that I might get $1,100 or $1,200 or maybe even $2,000 one time or per month does not make very many people feel very good. A very small percentage of the population will be pleased with that. And so if the stimulus packages allows UBI to pass to bypass corporations and not keep jobs, then it probably doesn't work very well. On the other hand, if maybe it's a supplement to keeping jobs going, maybe we all respond and say, hey, that works for us. If we can see those two answers occur, then we're going to be in a position to answer the markets about whether or not assets are overpriced. Now, I'm going to tell you more about this tomorrow, but this fundamental question we're wrestling with, this is why you're seeing this big fight between two kinds of narratives. One narrative says, well, this is not that big a deal. Everyone's overreacting, and this will be fine in a couple of weeks. I even heard one major economist, in fact, a nationally famous, well-known economist, saying to an entire industry sector, you're going to be done with this pretty soon, and you're going to make up all your business by the end of the year. Guys, I would think that's pretty Pollyanna. The numbers, first of all, that economist has been consistently wrong as we come into this process. Secondly, the numbers make that unlikely. This is probably not something that we consider to be a blip. This is probably something that, as I said before, could grind on at least 18 months and maybe even longer, depending on what this stimulus offers. So keep your eyes peeled, keep watching this, and we're going to talk more about helping you kind of identify the two narratives and which narrative you should allow to be authoritative. I want you to know, my narrative is not my narrative. I have not written it. History has written it, and I have studied it and am sharing it with you. And so far, it has been a pretty accurate way for you to consider what's happening and has given you the opportunity to prepare and to plan and to get your business ready. So we're hoping that this is helpful to you guys. Your feedback means the world to us. Please continue to like, subscribe, push this out to as many people as you can. Check out our YouTubes and our Vimeos and all the millions of places we're currently storing things. I will be the first to tell you folks, I am not very good at sharing these kinds of information. I'm adept at gathering information, helping to interpret it. But when it comes to so-called marketing, self-promotion, this is really not my game, guys. So need your help. All your feedback helps us get better. We're so thankful for you, my team that helps me do this. I'm thankful to them, and we are all together thankful for you. If we can serve you in the mortgage world, we want to do that. If not, we just want to continue to give you the information that you can use to make good decisions in your life. So help us get out there, help us get in front of lots of people, and please let us know what we can be doing to serve you. If you've got questions, if you've got thoughts, if you have, anything we can address, we want to continue to do that. And in the meantime, watch for tomorrow's Modern Minute. Thanks for your time, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.